Welcome to Unlock 360, the podcast for champions of public education. Here we explore the connection between leadership, teaching, and learning, and reveal the keys to getting better results for all students. Each episode highlights a change maker who's turning vision into action and creating schools where both educators and students thrive. Welcome back, everyone. It is great to be here with you today. We have a very special guest joining us, Chris Calabrese of Benicia Unified School District. Chris is the superintendent of Benicia Unified. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy.
And thank you for being here. Will you start us off just by sharing a bit about your journey to becoming an educator? 30-second intro of yourself.
Sure. I had no intention of getting into education, and I was a camp counselor. And I came home, and my father said, "I want to be a stockbroker." And my father said, "Why don't you invest in people's lives instead of their money?" And that turned that into a motto, and that has been my life's journey, is investing in people's lives. And so I was a high school teacher. Was an elementary school vice principal, middle school vice principal, eventually became a elementary principal, two different schools, and then moved into the district office, student services, HR, and then now here in Benicia as superintendent. So I've had this K-12 journey, and it's been exceptional, and I wouldn't trade it.
That is so cool. I love it. Invest in people. And so tell us, what is your favorite part about leading a district?
It's definitely developing leaders and working with leaders, coming alongside them and supporting them, and helping to see the forest for the trees, and digging into the challenges that we have, and both in helping them cast their own vision and mission, but also aligning that with the district and my own. And so that piece I enjoy the most as a superintendent, as a leader, is just that growth, and it goes back to that motto of investing in people's lives.
That's wonderful, Chris. I love the way you described it. For all of our listeners, the way this show works is that we want to understand what Chris is currently seeing in K-12 leadership, what he and his team are doing to improve outcomes for kids, any challenges they're facing now, and what they're trying to solve for in the coming school year. And with that, I'm just, thinking about what you just mentioned in terms of developing leaders. Will you shed some additional light on what your current situation is there and, where you're looking to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two very key leaders in our district retiring as part of our cabinet. And so we have interviewed and filled those positions. And so I'm bringing in two leaders from larger districts that are exceptional in the work that they do. And so bring them into Benicia, which is 4,500 students, seven schools, and they're coming from a district of over 30 schools and 40 schools. And so being able to transition them, and I want them to do those leading walks. I want them to go out and meet leaders and talk to them and listen and look at the low hanging fruit, that those nuanced things that could be changed, that can make a real difference. But also be thinking about where we're going to be a year from now. And I always ask the question of what's the impact of the work that we're going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I want to set up the next set of leaders in this district for success. Also, I want the work that we do to be sustainable. So to have that lens, and I think a piece of that is knowing yourself and knowing what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, how do others perceive you? And so in that work, and knowing those two things, and some of that is not only dialogue with leaders, but some of that is surveying and doing anonymous survey and get that feedback for your own leadership to be able to really be able to move folks forward in their leadership, to have an impact on kids. And that's what it always comes down to, right? What are our site leaders doing so that it's impacting our classrooms and our staff, so that they can make a difference for children. And so being very intentional about that work. And so as I bring in these two new leaders, well, one of the things I want them to do is set up their 100-day plan and come back to us as a cabinet and share what is it that they've seen and what they've learned, and where are we at with our initiatives. We're also hiring a new principal right now. And so that site leader, and sometimes you can get super hyper focused on the needs of that school. And although that's incredibly important, but we all know that needs of schools change. And so we're going to be 5 years from now. And so making sure that that leader is the type that can learn and grow, and adapt and be flexible and be able to make those shifts in their leadership to meet the needs of students. And so being cognizant of those things all the time and talking about it all the time, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, and as you were speaking about, your new district level leaders and their plans coming in, I was reminded of, something I hoped to pick your brain about in terms of your vision, stepping into the role as a superintendent, coming from a different district and I'm getting to know Benicia. What was your plan? What was your what did you see? What was your vision? What were you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, in the beginning, it's very much learning about the people here and who's connected to whom and the work that has been done and also understanding the history. This is one of the oldest school districts in the state of California, and so it has a long tradition. And this community rallies around its student and are very very supportive. And from local organizations like Rotary and Lions Club and Kiwanis and to Benicia Community Foundation, there's just lots of layers of support. And so I needed to learn that quickly. I needed to see that and learn that. And then also the staff. Staff's been here for a long time in many cases, generational. Our high school principal graduated from the high school that she is now, right? And so you see that a lot. And so recognizing that. And I came from a town like that. So it was important for me to understand those pieces. For me, my vision is really about bringing some stability to our district as we've gone through declining enrollment for many many years. And so, how do we stabilize that? How do we slow that? How do we attract families to this wonderful little town? And can we grow our district? We do have two developments that are going to come in over the next 5 years. There's some time before that. So how do you transition during that time period? We are Valero is the oil refinery just closed, and so that's incredibly impactful economically to this community. We're going to probably lose families as a result. We already have, but now we're the largest employer in this community, and so recognizing the weight that goes with that. So all those pieces together, and again, how do you do all of that? You want to attract families to a district, and so you accent the great things that are happening academically, right? And then the great things that are happening, all the other things. At our high school, 45% of our students participate in sports, music, and drama. And so that's what attracts families to a community like this, right? And those are the great things that hold and connect people together and students together. And so it's bringing all of that.
Yeah, and so for the audience, so often I have guests on the show, whom I have not met and where I have not been. In this case, I have had the pleasure of visiting Benicia, not the school district, but the town. It is so cute. It is the like a clean, cute, neat little downtown area. Such a cool city and a beautiful, beautiful surroundings.
It absolutely is. It's charming. It's easy to fall in love with. People ask me often, have I settled into my position? And I always say that you don't want me settling in. If I've settled, then you should move me on. But it does feel like home. And this community reminds me of home, and it makes me feel very much at home. And from the waterfront to the food, the music, the farmers market, car shows downtown. There's just lots of charming things that happen here. Fun run in a pouring rain, and you have well over 500 participants in it. It's just incredible. And so this community comes out to support our students, and I love that about Benicia.
It's wonderful. Yes. Chris, will you tell us, having a coherent or cohesive vision across school sites in a district is, balancing that with also giving some autonomy to school sites to do what they need to do for their students can be tricky. What are some of the ways that you all try to do that in Benicia?
Yeah, it's a great question. We all want to see our students excel academically. We all want to see our students, leave our schools with strong character, right? We all want them to have a strong foundation in social and emotional learning, right? And those things are universal. It doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter the school site. And so recognizing that may look different at each of our schools. And so it's having those driving questions, I think, that are so, so important. And so we can universally have those questions about what do we want students to learn and how do we know that they've learned it, right? And that doesn't matter where they're at academically, that question still rings true. And then taking a look at that assessment data and common and set formative assessments still rings true regardless of where students are at, right? I'm very proud of Benicia Middle School has just been named a distinguished school in the state of California. It is awesome, and that's
It's
clearly
really awesome.
it is, and they did that because they closed the achievement gap. That's why they're being recognized.
Okay.
And that work has been going on for the past 3 or 4 years, right? They've been laying that foundation. That didn't happen in the 8 months that I've been here. That's been work that they've been doing. They did that because they connected with students. They made some changes to ensure that they were connecting with their students, whether that was out in the hallways before class, whether that was work that they were doing within the classroom to connect with students, and then also looking at the academic level and meeting students where they were at and taking a look at their assessment data and making those changes that they needed to make to address students' needs. And it was also putting in other pieces, math intervention, reading intervention, things like that, which is a struggle in a district that has a budget of 66 million and is spending 67 million, right? That's a problem. So I try to keep that pressure off of our site leaders, but it's affecting all of us, right? The budget systems that we're in right now. And I don't want to go too far down that road, but it's always about, trying to ensure that you're able to deliver that level of intervention, of academic success, of instruction to ensure that academic success is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it is tricky because you have a lot of needs that need to be met and a limited amount of funds to do so. Along the lines of, some of the work you were describing that the middle school did to close those achievement gap, I'm thinking about the power of collaborative culture and collaboration structures, and just curious, what does Benicia do? What structures do you have in place to help collaboration be part of the culture and not just a one-time initiative or thing on the calendar?
Yeah, what I think is incredibly important is empowering site leaders and to allow them to do that work. And we do that at the district level, but also allow them to do that at the site level. So what I mean by that is site principals need to be part of the process when it comes to our district meetings. So if that's a site level meeting, then what is it that they're needing? What is the topics that they need to talk about? And how are we developing them as a leader? So I think that's incredibly important to have that dialogue and then give them the tools for success, posing the questions, and then allowing them to take that back. I think we all struggle with time, and so it's trying to ensure that their time is valuable and be able to use it effectively, right? And sometimes we have district initiatives that take way too much time away from the practicality of what they're doing, and recognizing that and building safety. So allowing our principals to be able to say that. So when I ask the question of them individually or in a group, what can we do to support you? What can I do to support you? Is there anything you're needing? Right. I say that sincerely as a former site principal. It was valuable to me when my superintendent said that to me about, well, here's what I'm struggling with right now. And oftentimes that was an issue with a parent. That was an issue with a student. That was an issue with a grade level's needs as far as curriculum. And so they were larger than I could deal with at a site level. I needed more support. And so taking a look at that about how can we do that differently. And so that taking that back to the site level, it's really about building up your leadership team and building that trust, having those norms as a professional learning community and revolving around those 4 questions and really taking a look at what it is that we're doing and how we can improve things for students and connecting students to their learning, but also to their school, right? And it goes with that adage of that, people don't care how much you know until they know how
Yeah.
much you care, right? And so I believe in that. For my work, it's making sure that our principals know that too, that I care about their success, that I care about what they're doing at their school sites, and how can I better support that?
Yes, I love that Roosevelt quote, I believe.
I think you're right. Yes, and I think John Maxwell stole it and has said times that he claims it's his. Yes.
Yes, and it is so very true. It is so true. Chris, I'm also curious about the bond that you all are working on, modernization through Measure C, and leading a major, 122 some odd million bond initiative is complex. And there are quite a few other superintendents around the nation that are either doing this, trying to do something similar or getting ready to do that. And so, what insights can you share? How is this going for you all? What's working? Any tips for success that you might be able to share?
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best. I walked into this situation, so I want to be fair to the leaders before me. They were the ones that laid the foundation. They were the ones that talked to this community and talked to them about what the impact the bond would have. And this is the second bond that Benicia has passed. And so it is critical to have your community know what it is that they're voting for and have to get them behind that. And then you need to communicate it all the time. And one of the things that I saw when I first came here was that I don't think we weren't explicit enough about the work that we were doing. And sometimes data cables underground and new electrical and new water lines aren't really, jazzy and exciting. So you have to let folks know that. And sometimes the sticker value of those things are also shocking. And so folks in the trades and construction understand that. So someone who's building a house understands that, but someone who is, in another field may not. So it's important to really get that message out about what it is that you're doing. And so for us here, since I've been in the district, we are redoing two fields. It is our softball and our baseball field. It is going to be a complex that is going to be second to none. It is going to rival university stadiums. It will be incredibly beautiful. And part of that, why we're doing that work, there's a drainage issue. There's all those other things that get involved in doing that. So we want something that's stable and that's going to last a long, long time. Part of it will be turf so that we're reducing our water usage. We're reducing our costs, our ongoing costs. But we're moving our girls softball team off of an elementary school campus and onto the high school campus where it belongs, and address the Title IX issue there. And in doing so, then that allows us to now do some work at an elementary school that is much, much needed. And freshening that. And so being wise with our dollars, and it's incredibly important. So we have an advisory committee that works with us, our citizens oversight committee, and we let them know about our projects that we're doing, and we dig into that work and share with them. In addition to that, we get out there a lot and see the work that's being done and ensure that we're doing what we said we're going to do. Take pictures of that, share that with the community so they know, and there's always lots of beliefs around that, right? Why is it taking so long? And, one thing in construction is always going to cost more than you thought it did, and it's always going to take longer. And so being transparent with our community about that, right? And not setting them up for failure by saying we're going to be done in a year when the reality is there's going to be a delay. You're going to hit that boulder that you didn't know was there. You're going to find a water line that no one knew about or a sewer line that no one knew about, So one of the challenges that we have right now is we're going to redo our middle school field. That's probably about 18 months to 2 years out. We're really excited about that. But we have a cell phone tower on it. And so have written to the cell phone tower company that has a lease with the city of Benicia to remove it. And they're not responding back. And so there's the politics of all of this, right?
Yeah.
And so little town Benicia fighting a conglomerate cell phone tower company. So you may see me in the news at some point, Wendy, as I attack. Hopefully they respond and they do the right thing as their lease is coming up. But we need that to be gone so that we can do the work that we need to do to improve our fields for our students and extend play and extend healthy outcomes for our students, right? That's what this is about. This is about setting kids up for success, teaching them habits, long-term habits for their own health. And so we're going to have a running track, soccer fields, and then we're also redoing a play field that extends our outdoor education program, PE and other things.
Yeah, well, and I think that, the aesthetics and the usability of facilities are attractive to families, right? And you mentioned the declining enrollment and wanting to find ways to attract families. So I can see that as a benefit as well. While the main goal is, healthy kids and better outcomes for your kiddos,
Right.
I can see that benefit as well.
Yeah. To add to that, and also classroom spaces, right? New furniture, paint, lighting, improved lighting, right? Getting away from fluorescence, lowering our energy costs, new windows, those types of pieces all come to that. But overall health of a district impacts your rating. And so having your bonds rated at double A and above it is super, super important because now our community is not paying more money for that bond. And so anytime that we can reduce those costs for that taxpayer dollar, we want to do that to ensure that we can stretch the money that they've given and trusted us with for our projects. And so I think that's another piece that's really, really important, and taking that to our board constantly and being transparent so that when we do go back out or redo the bond and reassess it, that folks know where we're at.
Okay. And you've mentioned a couple of very real challenges in terms of your enrollment and also, just the politics of you've got a cell phone tower that's in the way here. What other challenges are you all facing?
Let me go on the practical day-to-day needs, first, before I
Okay.
get into the politics piece. So, we're seeing behaviors in classrooms that we haven't seen before, and although it's gotten better out of the pandemic, there's still some challenging, behaviors, and so supporting staff with that and helping students. And so we as adults have to do things differently, and sometimes that's hard, to meet the needs of our students. Coming alongside families and parents about supporting their child and what their needs are, and that's really really challenging. And so, and that work takes connection, that work takes relationship, and sometimes that takes time, and you have to build trust. And sometimes that work, I use the analogy of, I'm not a pilot, but I use the analogy of a runway. And sometimes you have to build a longer runway in that work, to get that plane off the ground. You can't do that work in the hangar. And so sometimes it's too soon. And so that builds relationship. And meanwhile, though, you have a struggling student. And so what do you do? What do you do every day in supporting that student? And some of that is staff development and putting more tools in a toolbox, or pulling out old tools in the toolbox, for our staff, for our teachers, for our aides. And some of that is implementing new ideas or new structures, and really taking a look at what the struggle is. And it's always complicated. It always has layers to it, right? It's never just one. And so coming alongside that student, but we've seen the successes also. We've seen the students that may have struggled and couldn't sit still in TK kindergarten, and that learning was just way over their head, right? And now in fifth grade, they're successful. And so, I believe in an inclusion model. I believe in supporting students, where they're at. And so, layering that in, and how do you do that? And that sometimes is bringing in outside experts, and sometimes that's adapting the environment to meet the students' needs. And so being cognizant of those pieces and asking the right questions.
Yeah, you mentioned staff development, and I came across your 5-year professional development plan on your website. It was really, really well done and very clear, like what you're after each year. How are you all implementing those pieces?
Yeah, our ed services team is exceptional, and so they've developed that plan. And part of that is adjusting to the nuances that happen every year, to the needs. But there's a core foundation there. As you saw, it's all rooted in a professional learning community. It's all rooted in those driving questions, and so. That laying that foundation, right? And people are going to move, people are going to change. We're going to see different leaders come in, we're going to see different teachers come in, and staff. And so it's making sure that they know it is, where we're going with this work. As we have a new assistant superintendent of ed services comes in, she's already looked at that plan, and understands the layers to it. And I'm sure she's going to have suggestions and her own ideas. But that foundation is there. And so it's ensuring that's in front of our staff all the time, and listening to their needs, right? Listening to what it is that they need, and how is this working. Recently, there was a conversation about assessments. There's too many assessments at a particular grade level. And so when our ed services department met with those teachers and talked about that, there was a light bulb moment where the 2 years prior, or a year and a half prior, teachers had asked for additional assessments in a particular area. And so now that need shifted, right? And so it felt like we don't need that as much anymore. So let's take those away. Let's dial that,
Okay.
right? And so it's being attentive to the needs of our staff, and recognizing that there was a need earlier in the year that they were requesting that,
Yeah.
and now it feels overwhelming. So, and as we all know, May is overwhelming, right? April, May is overwhelming when it comes to testing. So being cognizant of that, and balancing all between state testing and your own formative assessments at a site, or summative. So that's important, and figuring that out together. But that takes collaboration, that takes a team working together, takes trust, that takes holding to your norms and asking those driving questions together as a team.
Yes, and all of that does require that four-letter word that you mentioned earlier, time. And, one of the challenges that I know many districts face across the nation, but in California in particular, I'm thinking of, some of our partners who are looking at collaboration structures and time for collaboration and, when you can provide professional development to all of your staff, when can school site leadership teams have the time to work together, when our teacher teams, grade level teams, departments working together? And what are your structures like in Benicia?
Yeah, good question. So we have staff developments a couple times a year. It is limited, right? And that largely has to do with the finances of this district and then the state. And so it definitely holds us back. And I don't want to get too far out on a political soapbox here, but the state keeps adding more and more requirements of what trainings that we have to take. And I see value in all of those things, but we're talking about a day and a half now in trainings, and so that limits our PD time. We do have a structure within the district that we have an adjusted day once a week, and so allowing teachers to do some collaboration or development in their classrooms. And so I think there's great value in that. And one of the things I think that does hold us back is time and money, and being able to bring staff together on as a grade level during the week. And so looking at how do we do that? How do we restructure things to allow folks to do that? When teams are collaborating, great things happen. And so that is definitely a challenge for us. And I think it is for many districts in the state of California. There are one-time monies and there may be some work to do, but then the other challenge of that is having substitute teachers. So pull teachers from the classroom and have high quality subs come in and teach. And subbing's not easy, right? That's tough.
No.
At a PD day back in January, I raffled off a day of subbing, and I went to a fifth
Oh
grade
boy.
in April, and I subbed, and the technology failed me, or I failed the technology that day, and so we were old school, and I had a great time teaching that fifth grade classroom, Mr. Wendy's class. It was wonderful. I did have to reteach triangles, so my point being is the struggle that goes with subbing and then getting subs and then supporting our classroom teachers so that they can be out of the classroom to do that work. But they have to write lesson plans, and so time is always a challenge for everybody. And the structures that we have is essentially those adjusted days once a week and then 2 PD days. And quite frankly, it's not enough. And so what do you do? And, we all know that our educators work far beyond the hours that they're being paid for.
Right.
And the work that they do is as much mental and as it is physical. And so recognizing that we need to support them in other ways also. And how do you do that? And I don't know that I have an answer to that one. It's an ongoing challenge of supporting staff and ensure that they're always there to give their best, and for our students. And I don't think any of them expect any less of them. So how do I support that? And so that one always weighs on me as a superintendent of what can we do more of? What can we do a better job of?
Very true. Yes, these are all real pieces. Thank you for sharing that. Superintendent Calabrese, if someone is looking for a new place to call home, a new district that has modernized facilities and classrooms and fields, where would they go? Or hey, maybe they're looking for a new place to call home as a teacher or leader. Where would they go to learn more about what's happening in Benicia?
Yeah, you can go to our website at beniciaunified.org and learn more about us. You can reach out to me personally and send me an email. Be glad to talk about this town and this community and our schools. I could do that all day. It's a great place to for your children to attend school. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to play. Between the bay, you're a short drive to lots of great places, but you really don't need to go far if you want some great entertainment on a Friday, Saturday night, live music throughout this town. This town has a heart for music and the art. And so it's one of the things that I absolutely love about it. There's some great musicians that started here, and it's alive and well in Benicia, as well as just that community feel and that support. I think we have about 42 homes for sale in Benicia right now. And so, though in the Bay Area as a whole, Benicia feels expensive, but compared to places like Santa Clara and San Jose, you can get a place here for probably $1 million less than you could there. And so it's a short drive to San Francisco, Oakland, and Solano County has some job opportunities. And so it's a great place to come to. Definitely should check it out.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And also, as I mentioned before the show, wanted to give you an opportunity to, recognize, shout out to honor someone who has had a positive impact on your life as an educator or a leader in education. Who is that person that you might like to recognize today and why?
Yeah, there's lots of people, but I would say Dr. Trudy Arriaga. She's a retired superintendent from Ventura. She wrote the book Opening Doors, and she's just been instrumental in my career and very inspiring to me. Some 8, 10 years ago, I read that book and then reached out to her and had her come out for a professional development. Today, she's a mentor, she's a friend, and I reach out to her often, and I her questions to me, her wisdom that she bestows means a great deal to me. But always keeping that lens of equity in front of me at all times, and so I value that about her so very much.
Yes, Trudy, I hope you are watching or listening and share this with others. Thank you for the positive impact that you have had. I'm sure not only on Superintendent Calabrese, but others. We appreciate you. And for our audience, thanks for tuning in. That's a wrap. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on Unlock 360. If this conversation sparked new thinking, share it with a colleague and keep the dialogue going in your school district. Public education is complex work, and progress happens when leadership and teaching move together. I'm Wendy York Davoud. Until next time, keep building the systems that unlock what's possible, because strong leadership drives deeper learning.